From the studios of Tucson Business RadioX, recorded in the Stewart Title corporate offices on Broadway, you are now listening to The Mark Bishop Show. And now here's your host, Mark Bishop.
And welcome to another episode, another informative episode, digital currency. It's the wave of the future, whether we like it or not, and central banks around the world are introducing a new kind of money, one that will allow us to transact in our digital world safely and securely. Now, a recent survey by the Bank of International Settlements found that 80% of the world's central banks surveyed are engaged in research, experimentation, or development of a central bank digital currency, known as a CBDC. And furthermore, 20% say they would likely offer a digital currency by 2025. So that's why I'm, reading everywhere that there will be no cash in the not-too-distant future. I wanted to get some facts on it, and who better to ask than David Treat. He's Senior Managing Director, Global Blockchain and Multi-Party Systems Lead at Accenture. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
A CBDC is by its nature tokenized, right? Meaning that when it is minted, a central bank gives each token a unique identifier, much as a dollar bill has a serial number. So, David, like a paper dollar, this digital dollar is a fiat currency that enjoys the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, and maybe one of its the most important characteristic against the backdrop of all the rest of the cryptocurrency space or digital currency space. That premise of it being yet just another form of the dollar in a U.S. context is really important, because a dollar is a dollar, no matter what context it's in. Whether you're passing paper currency across a counter to a merchant, swiping your card and drawing down from your checking or savings account, or in this case now with this new form of money, using a CBDC token.
So, and like a paper dollar, it's a bearer instrument, meaning it can be held by only, one owner at any moment. And unlike account-based currency, it's never subject to a reconciliation process. Is that correct, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah, that's right. One way to think about it is if you walk up to that, you go to your local shop and you have that choice. You can pass the paper token across the counter, right? The physical cash. You could swipe your credit card, which, just to your point now, right, would then kick off a message to your bank to check funds availability, a message to the merchant's bank, to the merchant. It's a multi-day, multi-message and reconciliation-based process with fees and delays, et cetera. Or now, with this new form of money, you can transact as conveniently and directly as you were passing cash over the counter. You're simply tapping and transferring that token directly to the shop owner, and it's immediately available then for their use, just like cash would be in their till.
All right, so we're calling them CBDCs. What is central bank digital currencies? What sets them apart from established currencies?
So we talk about it as being a third form of money. Obviously, the first form being paper and coin, minted by the Fed and Treasury. The second form being our electronic balances and our checking and savings accounts, right? It's an electronic form of money. And as you suggested earlier, now similar to the process by which, again, in a U.S. context, the Fed and Treasury would mint paper dollars and distribute them to the banking system. In this future, they would also mint these central bank digital currency tokens as bearer instruments. They would go into the banking system, and you and I, as end consumers, would have the choice. Just as if we're going out and we want to have cash in our wallets and go to an ATM to withdraw the cash, we have the ability to go either via an app or potentially an ATM and download these central bank digital currency tokens into our phone and carry them and to then be used without that messaging and reconciliation. So we're still drawing them down out of our checking or savings account. We're just changing. Right. We now have a new option of not just getting paper, but we can also now get these digital tokens, which obviously then work better in the digital world for online transactions, or certainly not subject to distance being an issue.
Right. Well, what about the CBDCs, improving the way consumers businesses and banks transact? Are we all going to be up there together, or who's going to be behind?
Yeah, so when you globally and in the U.S. context, it's really the banking system, credit card companies. If you look at the players involved into helping to shape this future, it's all of those players plus the regulatory community, legal community, consumer affairs, focused people, all to be able to design this in a way that will be maximally usable. And maybe one of my favorite parts of this is that I think that it opens up the possibilities to help to address, not a panacea, but help to address the unbanked and underbanked population, people that are not included are directly into our financial system, for whom physical cash is really the only option or default mode. The ability to think through, no one needs to be onboarded to use cash, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody has to sign up or et cetera. So adopting those principles of creating this central bank digital currency, the ability to think through being obviously with the very important dynamic of someone has to have a smartphone, which can be a hurdle for some. But if you are enabled with a device, being able to download this wallet, have a different standard for that onboarding, right, to prevent the situation that many face in banking deserts in a U.S. context where there isn't a bank branch for hundreds of miles around. Right. Being able to download a wallet, and essentially have an easier onboarding ramp into the financial system, and to be able to transact online through what this technology can add. So we're excited that it's going to be able to add at that end of the spectrum. Yeah. Similarly, at the other end of the spectrum, you see giant players, right? Core capital markets infrastructure players, banks around cross-border payments, thinking about how does this help modernize our financial infrastructure, which is getting old and creaking, and just like we need to upgrade our bridges and tunnels and roads, we also have to continue to modernize our financial infrastructure.
So, David, this is just the start of 2021. The central bank issued digital currencies. Is this the year?
This is the year for pilots, and hopefully pilots in the U.S. context. Right now, if you look around the world, we're helping Sweden's Riksbank create their pre-production prototype. We're working with the Banque de France on an exercise in Europe. There are announcements over the weekend in India. Obviously, China is making progress in this space. So globally, as the Bank of International Studies report that you referenced, this is a white-hot dynamic globally. It's been underway for a while. We actually, our first central bank client, we worked with a little more than 5 years ago now, but it's not quiet anymore. So we're a few years away from, I think, full-scale production implementation and you and I being able to use it. Right. But I think we're quarters away from pilot programs where we can start to really learn and start to develop it in the spirit and values and principles of what we want here in a U.S. context.
So all that countries you mentioned, and is that what we term the digital dollar project?
No, so specifically the digital dollar project is U.S. focused. It's in recognition. A little more than a year ago, former CFTC Commissioner Christian Carlo and I sat down and looked at all the progress that was happening around the world and saw a little bit of a lack of that progress here in the U.S. And so we wanted to help to bring that dialogue here. So it's a not for profit, pro bono activity on our part. It's an open community. We formed this fantastic board of advisors from the who's who of the financial and regulatory and legal communities, all intended to just get the dialogue going. Chris, on the project's behalf, testified before Congress 3 times over the summer. We're currently working with members of Congress around what pilot programs could look like. And as I said, hopefully our next goal, after having put out some white papers to help raise the level of understanding and education, our next goal is to help drive the right kind of public-private partnership to carry pilots forward so that we can start to develop this according to the principles and values that we have here in the U.S.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people, David, that would like to understand it more, read about it. Where can they go for this information?
Yeah, simply digitaldollarproject.org. You can go there. Anyone, you can download the white papers. You can look at some of the research, see the results of the congressional testimony, and read about the pilots.
That's fantastic. It's an exciting time. Probably scaring the older people. You know, I'm getting up there too, scare the wits out of us. But it's probably going to be easier than we think it is, you know?
It always is. The consumer advocacy voice here, thinking about all of the populations and usability and convenience. If it's not usable and convenient, it won't work. So we'll hopefully design something that can be natural for all of us.
Good on you, David. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, David Treat, Senior Managing Director, Global Lead of Accenture's Blockchain Business and Accenture's Lead of the New York FinTech Innovation Lab. Thanks. Hope all goes well for you, David.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it, Mark.
Okay. And over the past several years, he's driven the formation of Accenture's blockchain business, now spans the globe. And he engages clients all across industries and ranges from pure R&D right through to full-scale client business transformation. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back with another Mark Bishop Show soon.